Hello all, welcome to the Henry Holster Shop for HolsterLife episode 31. I have been recovering from a fairly tenacious cold, and so my throat is still a little bit off, and I'll probably do some coughing, and I'm drinking lots of tea, so hopefully that will help me get through the evening. It's been 2 weeks since I did my last broadcast, and I have a full-time employee now, which is the big change. So that's been exciting. We just finished a long week, a lot of work this week, and it's totally changed the way the shop feels. It's changed the way I do my work. It's changed a lot of interesting things in the shop, and I'm enjoying it tremendously so far. I was able to hire back a good friend of mine who has a lot of tool skills. So very different from what it would be like if I were starting with a basically unskilled employee. Tonight's tool tip is very simple. Expo whiteboard markers. That's my tool tip for tonight. I had a small whiteboard that I typically kept over on the CNC side of the shop next to my CAD computer or behind my CAD computer, and used it to keep sort of a running low-grade fever to-do list of stuff that needed to happen in the shop. And I've repurposed that board entirely. I've moved it over to the center front of the shop, and it gets updated first thing every morning. And it is a goals of the day sheet, goals of the day board now. And so every morning, whatever the most important things are that have to happen that day, that's what goes on the board at the front. Hello, Caleb. Hello, Michael Hallam. I shipped you guys your oil mist eliminator kits today. That was the other big thing. Finally got those kits done and on the website and sold out. So I put them up last night about 5:30, and by mid-morning today, all 40 kits were gone, which was awesome. I was really excited for that. And all the padded envelopes I'd ordered from Uline for it came in just in time. They came in yesterday afternoon late, so I was able to have my employee pack them all up this morning while I was printing off the labels and double-checking some other things in the shop and working on CAD. He packed them all up. We labeled them. We filled 2 bins up with packages. And I think it was probably the largest single batch of packages my mail lady has picked up in a day here at the shop. Hello, Jamie Lowe. Your OME kit is in the mail. So those of you who are watching who bought oil mist eliminator kits for your Robinair 5800, thank you for your business. I hope it helps keep your workspace clean and the air you breathe cleaner than it has been. And I do plan to have more in stock pretty soon. Hello, Jefferson Brooks. Thank you for sharing the video. As usual, if you are a holster company and you're watching tonight, please post your company name in the comments, and I would appreciate it if you guys would share the feed. I've taken 2 weeks off from this, which means I'm a little bit behind in terms of momentum. I don't have the usual rhythm going for me where I've got 2 live videos a week. So I've got to get back up that momentum and that steam. So I would appreciate your help if you could share the video. So what I'm encouraging you guys to do with whiteboard markers, my tool tip of the day, is rather than have a long laundry list of lots of undifferentiated to-do items, which is what I used to do. I just write down everything. I used to keep the larger size index cards, and I just fill them up and then write on the back. And I'd usually end up with 3 or 4, hello, John Hensel, 3 or 4 running index cards with about half the items crossed off on each one. And I wouldn't copy them over to the new card. I'd just keep the old card going, and I'd end up with stacks of these things lying around on my bench in the shop. It was a great way to lose track of important things. It was a great way to feel overwhelmed, confused, scattered, distracted. And it was a terrible way to identify and focus on the highest priority things that actually had to happen on any given day. So I've gotten more done this week and last week than probably the previous 3 to 4 weeks of working by myself. And that's not just because I have an employee to do certain things that would otherwise have slowed me down, but because I've been able to step back, refocus how I organize my work in the shop, and start to execute a new method of doing things here. Hello, John Hoffman. Thank you for stopping by. I've been reading a lot of patents lately, some holster related, some not. I've had much more interest in patents over the past year, and especially since January, some interesting things have happened in patent cases. But I was looking at some patents for things that are completely unrelated to holsters, and it's really interesting to see how good patents are written, what they say, what they claim, how they explain the operation of the thing, the motor part, whatever it is they're patenting. I've commented before that I think patent law in the U.S. is broken, and in manufacturing and small industries like Kydex, where you have lots and lots and lots of shops where the owners have good relationships and they're talking and they're collaborating and they're sharing, and a lot of stuff is open source, the traditional view of adversarial protection of intellectual property isn't what we're used to experiencing. There's some, and some guys hate some other guys over there, and there are little factions and there are groups that don't like each other, but generally I've experienced the Kydex holster world to be pretty open, pretty sharing, pretty willing to talk about almost anything. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's a tremendous asset to our field. And I want to see it encouraged. I want to see it built. I want to be a part of building it as much as I can. Thank you, Jim Cunningham and some other guys, for sharing the video. I appreciate it. So what I think you should do with whiteboard markers is you should keep a running list of goals of the day. Occasionally items will roll over, but generally long-term things, you could have a goals of the week and goals of the day category. Currently, I only have on my board, because it's not real big, I only have goals of the day. And so each morning before my employee gets here at 8, I come into the shop, I turn everything on, I go over, I wipe off the items that were crossed out the previous day that got done, and I fill in whatever are that day's goals for the day. If it's a particular thing that has to ship, if it's a particular file that needs to be emailed, if it's some supplies that need to be ordered, whatever it is that's at the top of the list of things that have to happen that day, it goes on the whiteboard. And I try to limit myself to no more than 4 things, because I'm not going to get more than 4 major things done in a day. The goal of that board is to help me move the needle each day. It's not to track long-term progress, to look at big trajectories. It's not a big picture vision kind of goal board. It's just, today, this has to happen. And so examples of things that would be on the board. Today, my employee Eric was trimming a whole bunch of TDI sheaths for Filster. So today, one of the goals on the board was Eric trim TDI sheaths. And he's already been running the mill since the first week he was here. I proof the programs, I set things up, I show him how to use the fixtures, and then turn them loose, and he's been doing a great job. But that was on the board today, and it's a task that could be accomplished today. A couple days ago, the goal was run the SIBE former, teach Eric to run the SIBE former. And so I took an afternoon, I set aside what I was doing, I turned the mill off, and we just went on the big vacuum former, and I showed him all the controls, all the menu options, how it's programmed, what the different options mean, how the controls interact, the different modes of operation, and how to run them effectively. We talked about plastic orientation, we talked about cooling, we talked about checking the plastic when it comes off the molds. We talked about troubleshooting in case of problems. We talked about everything that I could think of to download to him about that. I told him, and then we fired it up, and I ran a few test cycles, and then I turned him loose. HolsterBuilder.com, that's got to be Joseph Hazelar. Hello, Joseph, or Jessica, whichever Hazelar it is. Thank you for stopping by. I'm not seeing comments. I'm not sure if everyone's just quiet tonight or if my comments aren't showing up. So if you could, I'd appreciate it if you would leave a quick comment. It's very odd that they're not showing up. Enter a real quick comment. All right, my comment showed up. I don't know if everybody else's comments are showing up. So have a goal of prioritizing aggressively the things you actually do in the shop during the day or the evening, whatever it is you're working, whatever your work day is. Because I can be endlessly distracted by new things I want to learn, work I need to learn how to do in CAD, tooling catalog came in the mail. There's all kinds of neat carbide end mills that I could buy that might speed up my process here. I could spend time on the phone talking with other holster makers. I could spend time on social media looking at gear from other companies and trying to figure out how they did it. And there are all kinds of things that can suck up my time and energy during a day in the shop. And if that happens and the things that are on my board of the day don't get done, I'm failing to make forward progress. I'm failing to move the needle. And so the biggest change that it's meant for me is I have to be content with pulling back my ambition because my eyes are always big. You know, the phrase, your eyes are bigger than your stomach. You know, you pile your plate up with food, you sit down at the table and you start to eat and realize you can't possibly eat all of it. You took way more than you can handle. When it comes to stuff I would try to get done in a day, my ambition far outstrips my capacity to work. And I work hard and I work fast, but I will always end up putting too many things on the list, and that's a recipe for chronic frustration. Because I'm like, oh man, I only got 6 out of 10 things done. Well, 10 was too many. Of course you only got 6 out of 10 things done. The 10 you wanted to do were not possible in a day. And it doesn't have to be that the things on the board have to be major things. They might just be urgent things that have to happen that day. It might just be reordering some piece of material. It might be, I need 2,000 more screws. That has to happen today. Some of those things can be very easy and quick to check off. They don't have to be big deal things. It's just priorities and goals. So dry erase markers, get them, use them, set clear goals, stick to them. Now expansion is the topic for tonight, so I'll get right into it. I hired my first full-time employee. I started this company, started building holsters in 2008. I became a sole prop after that, then an LLC. Now I have my first full-time employee, and that has meant a pretty substantial change in the workflow in the shop. It's already meaning a change in the layout of some of the things in the shop. It's changing how I understand my role in the shop, and it's changing very much how I interact with the products my company makes and sells. So I will always be the lead designer. I'm the one who's responsible for making the molds, for verifying the fit, for doing all that stuff. And I'm still not seeing any comments, so I'm guessing my comments are jacked up. Because it's hard to believe that 23 of you could be here hanging out and nobody would be talking. So since I can't see comments, I'm just going to keep going on topic, and at the end of the evening I will circle back and I will read, probably on my laptop, all the comments you posted and respond to any questions that I couldn't answer because I couldn't see them during the broadcast. So sorry about that. And when it comes to how I interact with the products, having an employee means I'm not going to be hands-on with the product at every step of the process as I usually would be. That means my opportunities to recognize quality control problems, to check fit, to get feedback from the process are more limited. I'm not touching every segment of it anymore, which is good and bad because it doesn't make sense for me to be the one who's stuffing inserts in bags and packing product into padded envelopes. There's no feedback that I, as the owner, need about, yeah, it just said conversation has had 50 comments. I haven't seen a single one of them. I don't know if something screwed up with my mode or what. I'll try one or two things. No, still no comments. Weird. Oh well. Keep on rolling. I'm still handling everything that goes out. I'm test fitting every holster, every mag carrier, everything that goes out. But I do have to let my employee have the freedom to actually do real work and make real mistakes. Otherwise, I'll just micromanage him to death, and it'll be miserable for both of us, and he'll end up quitting, and I'll be back to being alone again. And I don't want that. So, day one, very first thing, on the first day he came in, I had him buff. And I had a whole bunch of very simple parts. About the simplest thing I make for buffing is my AR magazine carrier. It has no inside corners. It's just around the outside of a roughly square shape. And so there's no tricky places where you have to work around the corner of the wheel, nothing weird. And so I had him do 50 or 60 of those. And he got the hang of that real quickly. And I rigged up some new dust collection for the buffer so that he wouldn't be breathing in all that junk. And because obviously he's not going to share my respirator. And that went really well. It was very satisfying to see a whole bunch of buffed parts at the end of the day. And then the next morning we went over assembly. Turn your phone sideways and then back vertical, says Patrick Warman. Doesn't seem to have done anything to my comments. And so it has meant that, hello, Nick Hoffer, HoffTech in the house. Share the feed, please. It has meant that at the end of the day, when it comes time to do final packaging and stuffing padded mailers and shipping things out, that I'm coming to the parts with less contact up to that point than I would have had if I'd built them myself, obviously. And so I have to look them over differently, and if I find a problem, if I find a defect, if I find a mistake, oftentimes it'll be a mistake that I would have fixed much earlier in the process, like, oh, that edge got a little bit nicked with the bandsaw, or something happened here, and I would have tweaked it earlier on in the process, and it's not always effective to try to go back and do it the way I would once the holster is fully assembled with hardware on and everything. And so it's going to mean, it already has meant, that I've had to defect out some holsters here and there, not because they're not usable or safe, but just because they are not quite up to the standard I want to see going out of my shop. And so it's a good learning experience. It only cost me a unit here and there. That is small cost for an employee learning what the expectation is, what the method is to produce the product, what the standards are for quality control, the appearance, the fit, the function. And so I'm finding that even though I knew conceptually that most of the things I do in the shop involve layers of information and layers and hours of experience and touch and listening to the sound of the buffing wheel and listening to the sound of the bandsaw and getting very attuned to everything in the shop so that if something's not cutting right, I hear it, I see it, I feel it when I'm doing it. Trying to communicate all of that to an employee, even one who has skills with tools, is a significant amount of work. But it's communicable. You can explain what it is you feel. You can explain, when you're handling a part of the buffing wheel, you can explain what you're feeling. When you're cutting pieces, you can explain how the saw will break through certain features when you're trimming a shell. Like, watch out at this spot, it'll tend to chatter on the bandsaw. Or if they're trimming on a router table, I would lead in at this spot and lead out at that spot, and I would always make sure to reset my hands before I go around this corner, because the kydex always gets a little bit aggressive. The bit cuts aggressively at that spot. You can communicate all that. And so the expansion is not just about bringing the employee in. An expansion is not just about launching a new product or trying to reach a new kind of market. The biggest expansion for me so far is expanding the way that I think about my business and the way that I think about the things I do in my business. And so the E-Myth, hello Bobby Jackson, I shipped out your oil mist eliminators. I should say I shipped out Chris Williamson's oil mist eliminators today. Maybe he'll let you use them if he's nice. The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber I listened to it on audio cassette. Yeah, audio cassette in my Jeep Cherokee. And one of the things he goes over is writing operations manuals. Now, it has kind of a corporate big franchise chain feel to it, but what he's explaining when he talks about operations manuals is simply that until you can organize and quantify and regularize something in your business, you don't really control it. Until you have the system down pat and it runs the same way every time, you don't really have a system yet. And if you're going to bring employees in and you want to equip them to succeed, you have to lay the groundwork for them to succeed. They won't play the game well if the rules are unclear or the rules are always changing. And so the job description of what you're going to have them do, the teaching of the process, how you're going to have them do it, the tools you're going to give them to do it, and your expectations for how it's going to be done, all those things should be as simple and as clear and consistent as possible. If you come from the custom holster maker side, a lot of what you have always done is nuance. A lot of what you've made your holsters with is a case-by-case decision based on this particular plastic, on this particular gun, this exact cut, this particular set of hardware, without really having a mind to systematizing it or thinking in terms of principles that would apply across multiple holster types, different kinds of guns, different kinds of carry. But if you're going to teach an employee how to do that, they can't take all the time you took to gradually figure it out. You have to be able to tell them what it is you want them to understand, how you want them to think about the step they're doing, and then remind them of that every time they do that step again until they get to a point where they're on the same page as you with that. And one of the things I find most valuable about my current employee is he's not at all afraid to say he doesn't understand something. If he doesn't understand, he doesn't bluff. If he doesn't understand, he asks questions. I'm happy to have an employee ask questions. I would much rather have that than have an employee not ask, guess, and ruin a bunch of units when the answer to the question would have been simple and would have saved that problem. So I'm still working my way through the Lean for Dummies book, and one of the principles is Kaizen, gradual incremental improvement in everything. My shop is already cleaner than it's been in a long time, even though I am kind of I keep a generally clean shop. Right now, when we're in teaching mode and I'm showing Eric a lot of new things for the first time, he can't really move on to any new part of whatever process it is that day until he has my attention and I show him the next thing, which means sometimes he ends up in a holding pattern. And so right now, our default is if you end up in a holding pattern, clean something until I'm done with whatever I'm working on and I can come help you with the next part of your process, the next step you're working on. Hello, Matthew Bills. Thank you for stopping by. Please like and share the feed. And so he and I have been able to keep the shop cleaner, and I've been thinking aggressively about how to reorganize things. I've already moved all my shipping supplies. I've moved some of my bandsaws around. I've reorganized some things on my work tables right here by the machine. I've reorganized my storage for stock. I got a whole bunch of bins. I changed around where all my packaging for the individual products, not shipping but packaging materials, are stored. I've resorted all my hardware bins based on order of actual realistic priority of what I really use. And so stuff that isn't getting used often has been rebinned and stored separately so it's not in the way. I've cleared some more floor space. A lot of stuff has happened in the shop, and I'm finding that incredibly exciting. A lot of little things, like I finally ran overhead power to my work table, the one that the camera's on right now where my CAD computer is and stuff, because I'd always just had an extension cord running across the floor from the wall up and under the table to power my computer and shop vac and other things. And so I finally went ahead and ran overhead power and dropped it by the table so that I can more easily sweep all the way around that table and around the CNC and not be dragging around cords on the floor. Big win. Well, little win, but lots of little wins at a time. Hello, Chris Johnson. So expansion, a few other things. I've been playing with some new products. Don't worry, I'm not about to start selling this, but I've been playing with this design, this style. Just experimenting, trying some different things out. And it's interesting. I understand many of the benefits that guys talk up about that style of holster. There are still some downsides that I think most versions of that style don't effectively overcome. But I know I just want to taste it more, so I'm playing with it. I'm wearing that one around a bit and just trying to get more comfortable, give myself more feedback, play with options, play with different attachments, try a bunch of different clips, play with how I do the retention, where I put the retention mounting hardware, where I put eyelets, how many eyelets I put in, all kinds of little variables to really just play around with it and get a feel for it. Expanding into new markets. My expansion right now is primarily an expansion of production. I want to serve my existing market with my current products in an expanded capacity. I want to be able to do more volume in less time and get more product out there. Another kind of expansion would be expansion into new products or even into new markets. So I was joking. I made this kind of as a lark. There's no bearing or weights or anything in it, but it's a spinner. You know, the kind of EDC, you put a bearing in it, spin it with your hand. I might make some of these. I don't know. It'll be a question of whether or not I decide to do it on some Saturday when I'm taking a break from grinding through all week. These past 2 weeks, I've basically been working from 8 a.m. till midnight with short breaks for lunch and dinner and to see my family. And Sundays off. But that has a way of wearing me down. I think that's probably why my cold hung on for almost 2 weeks. So expanding into new markets could be a new web store, new marketing platforms. Like, there are certain kinds of products I could get into making where the primary place to market them would be Pinterest or some other platform that I don't currently use. And learning what they work, how they work, what the context is, who's on them, what they're looking for, how to market effectively there, how to talk there, how to build community there. That's a really interesting expansion. Mentally, strategically, that stuff really interests me. I don't have any plans to go try to hit the Pinterest market real hard, but depending on what products I make in the future, who knows? Maybe Pinterest. I don't spend a lot of time on Pinterest right now. Actually, I don't spend any time on Pinterest right now. But I think as in gun culture 2.0 or 2.5, whatever we're in right now, as more and more women get into firearms, platforms that are more female-centric, which Pinterest clearly is, will actually become very viable territory for holster companies that build products and design around optimized carry methods for women, can really do some good marketing and get some good attention there. Expanding products. I think generally, as I've been doing in most of these Facebook Live feeds, I push most companies that I talk to reduce their product line, not expand it. And the reason I push most guys I talk to reduce their product line is because of product creep. What happens is you start offering something because you had an initial order for like 10 of them, or you found somebody who wanted a couple, so you bought a mold, you started offering, you put it on the website, and it's hard to take those things away once you offer them. If you start offering fabric-covered holsters, it's harder to stop offering them than it is to keep offering them. If you offer pocket holsters, it's harder to stop offering them than it is to keep offering them. You have momentum, you have inertia in the direction of leaving your product list alone. But what that leads to often is kind of an incoherent mix of products that aren't all equally thought out, aren't equally well executed, and aren't cohesive with each other. And that actually puts you at a major disadvantage when it comes to branding and marketing your company, not just sales, but branding, because brand is a big part of what people buy when they buy consumer products. If you look at, I'll just pick a couple companies off the top of my head. if you look at the flashbang holster versus a company like Safariland versus a company like Raven Concealment versus a company like Crossbreed Holsters versus a company like On Your Six Designs, all those companies have a very different feel, have a very different brand. And that brand, what they stand for, what kind of users are attracted to that brand, is a critical part of what the brand sells and how they sell it. So it would not make sense to try to brand heavily and market yourself as a very tactically oriented, ex-mil veteran, LEO, tactical operator kind of feel to the company if your primary product is geared toward civilian female carry. Because it just doesn't, those two don't overlap very much, typically. It would not make sense to really push hard on the concealed, discreet kind of feel to the market if your primary product is duty holsters. If your primary customers are current law enforcement who are using it for duty carry, the brand that you project should reflect that reality. And you have to imagine who your consumers are actually going to be and how they'll view your product and what it is and how it'll work for them. And expanding your product offering without thinking carefully through how it's the same or different from what you already sell means you'll end up with a mismatched sort of hash of products that some are really in line with what your brand stands for in your mind and what your consumers experience it as. Some of it less so, and some of it like way out of left field. Like that, this company makes they make inside the waistband appendix holsters for lights, for full-size guns with lights, and they also make like elastic nylon ankle holsters. What? And so I've been pushing for narrowing the product line to try to help companies refine their own vision, their own brand of what it is they actually offer, what's their main wheelhouse, where are they most invested, where are they most experienced, where are they equipped to bring the most value in the design and execution of a product. And if it's, I don't make duty holsters for cops because I've never been a cop. I have no plans to ever be a cop. I've not walked in those shoes. I have not experienced using that gear in that kind of environment. And so I'm just not as equipped to bring value in product design there as I would be on the concealed carry side, which I have done a fair bit of. And so, I don't market my brand as uber tactical operator-ish stuff. I also don't market my brand as, my company brand is not like, if you're going to go to the grocery store to buy some bread and milk, throw on your Henry holster and then go trucking on down the road, because my gear is designed to be comfortable for all-day carry. And it's not a big soft pillow with belt loops on it, like some companies make. But the customers I'm trying to reach and the image for my brand as I imagine it, is not about casual carry. It's not about occasional carry. It's not about infrequent. Every couple days I'm going out. I'll throw my gun on. No big deal. That's not what my brand is about. Those are not the customers I'm trying to reach. And so my products are not designed around that customer's expectations or goals. My price point is not geared toward that customer. I don't waste time going places where those customers hang out and talk on social media to try to market to them. I'm not spending time trying to convince anybody about my product. I'm marketing to people who are already convinced about my kind of product, and then I'm marketing to them on the specific details that make my holster what it is. You know, the ride height, the spacing of the belt loops, what materials are used, how the retention feels, you know, the angled wedge on the back to improve concealment, all the different individual small features that help a person who's already convinced that all day, every day carry is what they want to do, those features that help them do that more effectively. And so expanding for me is improving my ability to serve those customers quickly and efficiently. It's not primarily about expanding to whole new markets and whole new customer bases. But you might decide for your company that that's what you need. You might want to expand to a completely different market, to a completely different field of product. I think there's tremendous room for holster companies to specialize in and market to women. I don't think there's ever been as many women as there are today who are either considering or have made the decision to start carrying and don't have nearly the experiences or resources at their disposal as a lot of the guys do. Big props to Annette Evans, who wrote a great article on most of the common female-centric modes of carry, you know, purse carry, different kinds of garments, thigh holsters, different kinds of things. Not your 7-Eleven high point thigh holster, but the, you know, under a skirt, under a garment, worn on the inside of the thigh, concealment holster for a subcompact pistol. And she goes over a lot of those different carry methods, their pros, their cons, her experience with them. There's more and more and more women who are considering getting into carrying a firearm. That's a tremendous opportunity for a company that wants to go deep on researching, testing, talking to female shooters, female concealed carriers, finding out what they like and don't like about the products they've already used, and find a better way to do design and concealed carry holsters for that crowd. There's tremendous opportunity there. And so you could expand into a new kind of market. Say I decided to pick a few common subcompact models that are more popular for women to carry just because of their size and their weight and clothing restrictions that accommodate lighter pistols better than heavier ones, and was to launch a whole bunch of pink, purple, blue, and different printed plastic holsters oriented around marketing to women who carry. That would be a legitimate expansion of my market, of my company, of my product line. But I'm not doing that because I don't think I'm as equipped to offer value there as a company, say, that was run by a woman. So if you're a female holster maker, awesome. There are very few of you around. You've got a wide open field, and you have a unique ability to talk to other women who are considering carrying and be trusted and respected and listened to by them because you won't be mansplaining to them. Well, my throat is starting to get kind of scratchy, so I'm going to sign off here and finish my tea. Not being able to see the comments has made it kind of difficult to interact in the discussion. I will go through and answer questions that got asked in text. Hopefully the next Facebook Live broadcast will be early next week, and I'll probably bat a fair bit of cleanup on these comments. If there's anything that requires a more in-depth answer, I will try to get to it in the next video. But thank you very much for spending your time with me this Friday evening. I hope you guys have a great night. It's been an exciting couple weeks for Henry Holsters as I got ready for my employee to come in, and now he's here. And hopefully we'll be able to start doing some more short Facebook Live things during the day while Eric is here in the shop. Some stuff of me filming him, learning different parts of the process. Some stuff of him filming me, what I'm working on with CNC and some CAD design, product testing, a little bit of everything. And we'll also be doing some more live videos on Instagram. So if you follow Henry Holsters on Instagram, some of my recent posts have showed pictures of my employee listing his account, Erico Palazzo. So go ahead and follow him there too. And thank you guys very much for your time. Hope you have a great night. I'm going to go through the comments in just a few minutes and then get back to running this guy tonight. So have a great night, guys. Thank you very much. Bye.